We can now go live to Herzliya to speak to Middle East correspondent and author Jotam Confino. Jotam, just before we start our conversation, I do want to bring some breaking news. A Hamas official has told Al Jazeera TV that the group leadership survived Israel's attack on Doha. So we are hearing from Hamas that the group leadership have survived that attack on Doha. But last week, Jotam, you predicted Israel would target senior Hamas members in Qatar and also in Turkey. So what's your reaction to today's blast, and who do we believe has actually been killed? As we know, the statement is saying no one at the moment.
Look, it's interesting that Hamas is already saying that the leadership survived. I would say that we should caution that statement just a little bit, because Hamas often waits a long time with actually confirming whenever their leaders are killed. One example is Mohammed Sinwar, who was killed in Gaza, the leader of Hamas, and it took a long time for Hamas to even acknowledge that he was killed. So I would say we should probably be a little bit cautious, even though Hamas is obviously quick to basically humiliate Israel, because if indeed they have survived, that's really bad news for Israel. But as for who they were targeting, we know that they were trying to go after Khalil al-Hayya, who's Hamas's top man, the top negotiator abroad in Qatar. He's closely aligned with Iran also, ideologically at least. They also tried to target Sahir Jabarin, who is Hamas's financial brain, so to say. He oversees their financial network. He's also overseeing actions in the West Bank. They apparently also targeted Mohammed Darwish, who heads the Shura Council, which elects Hamas leadership. So some of the top figures, and by the way, also Khaled Mashal, who is a longtime leader of Hamas, also residing in Qatar. But if it turns out that Israel did not kill any of those, that I would say is a huge failure, because they took a risk by attacking Qatar, an ally of the United States, and a crucial negotiator in the ceasefire negotiation between Israel and Hamas.
Yes, indeed, Jotam. And I think that question is going to be asked now, if what Hamas are saying to Al Jazeera TV is correct, that all of the group leadership did survive. But let's talk a little bit more about Hamas itself. What does it mean for Hamas as an organization now following this attack? How weakened have they become?
They've become very weak because Israel changed the rules of the game. They do no longer allow Qatar to give immunity to Hamas leadership. So even if they didn't kill them this time around, they will probably try again. And if Israel eventually ends up killing all of Hamas's leaders in Qatar, that is a huge blow to the organization. The leadership generally has suffered immense blows. Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader, has been killed. The actual big leader of Hamas in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, was killed, his brother. The list is very, very long. And when you keep attacking and eliminating the leadership, that affects what's happening on the ground. But up until now, it hasn't really forced or strong-armed Hamas into making huge concessions. And that is what Israel is hoping by attacking the leadership. They hope that after having, hopefully for them, killed the leadership, Hamas will shake it will shake their ground, and that they will surrender and they will take the deal that's on the table by the United States. So this is Israel's strategy. In terms of what's happening on the ground, Hamas is preparing for a full-on invasion by the Israeli army in Gaza City. So they're dealing with something completely different, while the leadership abroad is dealing with the ceasefire negotiations.
But it is interesting when I hear you speak, because Hamas did say that it was going to agree to a ceasefire plan in place. And Jotam, over the weekend, even on Sunday, it appeared to me and many people watching the news and following the story closely that actually a ceasefire was really, really close. So Qatar and a lot of other analysts are saying right now that these negotiations were happening. They were close to brokering a ceasefire, and this is why Israel also struck the building in Doha, because they don't want peace. Israel wants war. They want this to continue. Benjamin Netanyahu wants to stay in power.
There is definitely a point to be made that the Israeli government is looking to continue the war because Netanyahu wants to stay in power and he's got certain ministers in his cabinet who are very militant and who don't want a deal. That's definitely true. But there's also a second truth to this, because Netanyahu likes to play on many different horses. And the understanding among many analysts in Israel is that he actually would like for there to be a comprehensive deal to get all of the hostages out, because occupying Gaza is a massive burden on Israel financially, on the military, and he's not interested in becoming the de facto ruler of more than 2 million people in Gaza. And in terms of what Hamas has said to this Trump ceasefire proposal, I've also heard conflicting reports. I did hear that Hamas half agreed to it. They said, well, we're open to it, but we don't want to release all of the 48 hostages on day one, which was one of the main points by Donald Trump. So I think it's very hard to really, really know what's going on behind closed doors. All I can say is that Israel, by going after Hamas's leadership, is trying to strong-arming them into more concessions and to agree to the deal that Israel wants.
And Jotam, Israel has attacked Yemen and Iran. We can't forget that. However, Qatar appears to be a different kettle of fish. It's where negotiations were taking place. What does this mean for ceasefire talks? And what message does this actually send that Israel has attacked a sovereign country?
Look, for Israel, Qatar is a sovereign country, obviously, and it's one of the countries that they've been dealing with the most since October the 7th. But Israel has a very, very difficult relationship with Qatar, because Qatar is housing Hamas leadership and financing the very organization that committed the atrocities of October the 7th, while they're trying to play neutral negotiator here. So Israel doesn't see this in terms of international law. They see Qatar as having broken so many rules in the game that the gloves are off now. But you're right, it is a different kind of country because it's a close ally of the United States. And currently, as far as I'm concerned, they've pulled from the ceasefire negotiations, which is also, one of their ways of showing that they're not happy with this and they're trying to punish Israel. So this could all derail completely and escalate diplomatically, leaving Israel without a crucial negotiator that can leverage Hamas. But it is a different country in terms of military might. When Israel attacked Iran, they knew that there were going to be ballistic missiles fired at Israel. In terms of Qatar, I don't think we should expect Qatar to start firing missiles at Israel. I could be wrong, but I don't think that that's going to happen.
Jotam, Confino, thank you so much for your analysis and for speaking to us. Always a pleasure to have your thoughts.